Green Party presumptive presidential nominee, Dr. Jill Stein. Good to see you. Thanks so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Great to be here.
So that sounds great, you know, helping millennials, getting out of debt in terms of their college debt. But how do you pay for that?
Same way we paid for the bankers. We bailed out the guys on Wall Street,
right,
who actually crashed the economy with their waste, fraud, and abuse. And
so
how did we do that?
So you're talking about an $800 billion program? I mean, so again, how do you pay for it?
Well, actually, you know, if you count the quantitative easing for the bankers, that was an additional $4.5 trillion, which is far more than what we need for student debt, which is about $1.3 trillion. So, you know, we did a quantitative
easing, though, was from the Federal Reserve. So are you asking, are you saying that the Federal Reserve should pay for this?
Well, no, you don't pay for it. The Federal Reserve basically cancels the debt. It doesn't cost taxpayers 1 penny. And the reason it's good to do it for students is that it actually expands the economy. It's the stimulus package of our dreams to put to work a whole generation of young people that's held hostage in debt, that's working 2 or 3 part-time, temporary, low-wage jobs, not doing what their passion is, what their skills are, what they've been trained to do. So this is the stimulus package of our dreams, unlike the bailout for Wall Street, which just allowed more of the gambling as usual. So that didn't really strengthen our economy. On the other hand, bailing out a generation that's been basically hung out to dry is exactly what we need to get our economy going again.
Dr. Stein, you say that quantitative easing is the way that you would do this, but you know a lot of economists say that that drives up inflation, that it encourages debt, that it actually threatens the U.S. dollar, and countries typically use this when there's really no other option. You really think that the student debt crisis is to that level that we would use this?
Well, they're absolutely right when you're talking about bailing out banks, who just essentially use that bailout to do more of that gambling at taxpayers' expense.
But they did pay the bailout back, Dr. Stein. The banks have paid back the U.S. government.
Yes, but, you know, took a while to do that.
Right,
well,
but they paid it back.
Wait, they paid back the, they paid back that $800 billion TARP plan. That's what they paid back. They didn't pay back the quantitative easing, which was simply a cancellation of the debt. And that is inflationary when you expand the money supply without creating more productivity in the economy. And actually, economists are pretty much in agreement that if you do that for student debt, that is the stimulus package that our economy actually needs.
But Dr. Stein, you talk about these students as if they were hoodwinked. I mean, it's public knowledge what you're paying to go to college, and it's a personal choice and decision that you're going to pay $250,000 to go get a degree that then you can't get a job.
And that was exactly
it absolves people of personal responsibility. But again, whatever happened to individual responsibility in this country?
Excuse me, I would like to have a chance to answer. I think I'm here for an interview. Thank you very much. That's exactly the point, because young people were lured into these loans with the promise that there would be jobs. But what happened in 2008? Wall Street crashed the economy, so they basically reneged on their end of the deal. So we have young people who are going to college with the expectation of jobs. But what kind of jobs have been created? There's no question the jobs that have come back are massively jobs that are low-wage, part-time, and temporary.
Actually,
we've created the gig economy.
Why should the government be in the business of offering all of this free stuff? You know, as Dagan says, this is a personal responsibility. If you want to go to a certain college, if the choices that you make, why should the government be in the business of giving out college, health care, all of this free stuff? Is that your position on the economy? Government?
It's not government. We, as a society, are part of creating a world we can live in. Right now, young people have become the latest cash cow in a predatory economy. And what have they been deprived of? The ability to get an education, the ability to get a job, and the ability to have a climate in which they can live in the future. Right now, the science is telling us, this is the latest study, actually, announced by NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, called the Oh My God study, which is that we can now expect as much as 9 feet of sea level rise by 2050. So you have a generation that is up in arms. What is it that re-envisions our economy each generation? It has to be the young people.
Well, Dr.
But right
Stein,
now, they can't get jobs. They cannot afford education. This is not a world that works for all of us. No society has ever survived by devouring its younger generation.
Well, so where
but
are
that
you?
is exactly what our economy
Where
is
are
doing
you on
right
regulation?
now.
Because many businesses will argue that the reason that they're not hiring and adding more positions to the payroll is because Obamacare is killing them, because the regulatory environment is such.
I agree.
Yeah, okay.
We agree about Obamacare, because Obamacare was basically a boondoggle for insurance companies and pharmaceutical companies. So there's $500 billion every year that we are paying into paper pushing, into guaranteed predatory profits for these industries. These are bills. You know, I live in the state of Massachusetts. We used to call Obamacare Romneycare before it was Obamacare. It was essentially written behind closed doors by the insurance industry and the pharmaceutical industry. That's who's making out like bandits here, and taxpayers and businesses and everyday people are paying to the teeth for these stripped down, streamlined policies that don't actually cover you when you get sick. You may know I'm a medical doctor, in fact, so I know this well from the inside, that we are not being adequately covered by our health care. So what we need is a Medicare for all system. Right now we pay a health care tax, but we don't call it a tax.
Right, exactly.
It's a death by 1,000 cuts. It's premiums, copays, and insurance payments
Dr.
that
Stein,
are actually robbing us
before you go,
blind.
I just want to say, I just want to get really encapsulate what your campaign is about, because you've got a lot of competition, obviously. Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton, Bernie Sanders supporters you're trying to get. What is your fix to create jobs and move the economy in terms of economic growth?
Great. So, you know, I'm the one candidate that doesn't accept money and is not corrupted by lobbyists,
is that going to create jobs?
Corporations, and by super PACs. No, I'm saying I actually have the unique liberty to do what it is that the American people need. And the American people actually are clamoring for an emergency jobs program, which will also solve the emergency of climate change. We are calling for a Green New Deal, like the New Deal that got us out of the Great Depression. It not only revives the economy, it prevents catastrophic climate change, and it makes the wars for oil obsolete, which, mind you, is costing you 54% of our discretionary budget, which is half of your income tax right now, is going for these trillion-dollar wars, which are making us more endangered, not more safe. They create failed states, mass refugee migrations, and worse terrorist threats. Yet every American household is paying an average of $75,000 per household for these outrageous wars, which are not making us more safe, they're making us less safe. So by doing the right thing for the American people, because I'm not held hostage by anybody's large campaign donations, I can actually provide the solutions that the American people need.
Dr. Stein, thanks so much for joining us.